Hi, thanks for tuning in for another D6Pack video. Today I'm going to be reviewing Concordia by Rio Grande Games and designed by Matt Gertz. This is a game that was nominated for a Kennerspiel in 2013 or 2014. So with that, let me switch my camera around and I'll show you how it plays. Okay, so there's quite a bit of setup involved in this game, so I kind of wanted to walk you through that in addition to the gameplay itself. So this is one of the maps. I kind of just chose it random. The base game comes with this, and there's another map on the opposite side. But there's also expansions that you can buy to get new maps once you feel like this one's been played out a little bit. So the first thing you do is you set the map out and you get your resources lined up, which I think they're kind of out of the screen here, but I'll go over the resources a little more in a minute. And then you are going to take these tiles, which are alphabetized A, B, C, D, and you're going to randomly spread those wherever there's a matching letter. So for the A's, I'm just going to kind of place these out here, and then you flip them all over. And you do the same thing for all of the letters. So I'll kind of speed through this. So now that you've got all of your tiles placed out, you're going to look at each region and determine what the most valuable resource in that area is. So this is one of the player sheets, and you can see up at the top here, they have a listing of which resources cost how much. So silk is the most, brick is the least. So based on that, we're going to look at each area. So in Britannia, silk is the highest value resource. So we're going to find a tile, which I'll show you in a second here. So there's little tiles like this that have each type of resource on it. So in this case, we found a silk. On the back side, there's going to be some coin amount that we're not necessarily going to look at. But we'll place that out on Britannia. And then we'll continue to do that for each region. So again, I'll speed through this. Alright, so now that those are placed out, the next thing is to set up the resources for individual players. So I've already got everything that the players will need set up in a little baggie. So I'm going to kind of show you that now. So each player will get a set of cards in their own color. And I'll explain the purpose of those in a little bit. And they will also get a reference sheet, which I'll also explain when I get to the gameplay. Every player will get 5 coins, and some players will get more money depending on where they are in the turn order. Next, we have some resources. So each player will get one of each type of resource and then an additional food. And those can get placed into each one of the compartments of the player board. Next, each player will get 3 boats and 3 people, and 2 of those will go on the board, or on the player board. 2 of each of those will go on the player board. And then the player board is finished. So I'll get that out of the way. And then the remaining person and boat will both go on row. So every player will do that. And then they will also have a supply of houses, which will go out on the board at a later time. They also each have a score marker, which will go on the 0. At that point, we are ready to set up the cards. So, based on the number of players, there are cards for up to 5 players. So, you can see there's a little 1 at the bottom of that card there. Let's say we're playing a 3-player game. So, we'll take the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s. And the rest of the cards will all go back into the box. At that point, we're going to shuffle up each of those stacks individually and then place them out so that the 1s are coming out before the 2s and so on. I'm just giving each of these a quick shuffle. So stack them up, and then the 1s will come out first onto this track. At that point, the game is set up and we are ready to begin. So I mentioned during setup that each player gets an individual set of cards which are in their own color. On the opposite side of those, there's an explanation of what each of those cards does. The way this game works is entirely driven by these cards. On each player's turn, they will pick one of these to put down in front of them and then take the actions of that card. So I'm not going to go over all of the cards. There's some that come out up on this track that are going to do different things, but I will cover the basic ones that come in the starter hand. So one of the first actions that most people take is Architect. So what the Architect card does is it allows you to move and build. So at the beginning of the game, you have 2 figures out, so that means you can move 2 spaces. You could move 1 figure 1 space, or you could move 1 figure 2 spaces, or you could move 2 figures 1 space. And the spaces are always the lines. So let's say that I'm going to move my boat 2 spaces. Once I'm done with my movement, then I have the opportunity to build. It doesn't necessarily have to be where the unit that I'm moving is. If I had another figure over here already, I have the option of building in this city, this city, this city, or this city. And the way that building is determined is based on the player reference sheet. So, for example, in order to build a brick city, it costs 1 food and 1 coin. And then when you build there, you get to put a house on that city. If there is already a house on that city, the resource cost remains the same, but the coin cost is doubled. So that explains the Architect. The next personality card that can be played is called the Mercator. The Mercator is a trader of sorts. It allows you to exchange 2 types of goods, buying or selling. So I could sell food and tools, or I could sell my bricks and buy some silk. It doesn't really matter which way it's going as long as it's limited to 2 types of resources. And the cost of what you're buying and selling at is the number that's shown at the top of the player board, as I showed you earlier. You also get 3 coins just for using that card. The next personality card is called the Prefect, and that allows you to get resources in a specific area. So let's say I've already got a house down here. If I wanted to prefect that area, I would flip over this token, which gives me a food, and I would also get resources for any houses that I have in that area, so I would get a brick as well. if somebody else were to prefect it, I would still get the resources for anywhere that I have a house in that area. The other option that you have with prefect is once a few of these tokens have been flipped over, you'll notice that there's coins on the back of all of them, either 1 or 2 coins. And you also have the option of flipping all of those tokens back over and collecting the coins that are shown on them. So you start with 2 prefects. The next card is a diplomat, which I don't have to explain too much because it just copies one of the other personality cards that another player has already played that round. The senator is the next character card. The senator allows you to buy some of these cards up top, which are going to be additional personality cards that you can use on future rounds. When you buy these go directly into your hand so that you can use them the next turn if you want to. In order to get these, you have to pay the cost that's shown in this red banner. So there's a cost shown in that red banner there. Additionally, some of these, the first one you just pay the red banner, but the farther you go away from that, the more extra resources you have to pay. So these 2 cards, you have to pay 1 extra of any resource. And then at this point, it becomes that you have to pay an extra silk. This is a silk in anything, or 2 silks. Some of the cards may require more than 1 resource in order to buy, but the reason you might want to buy them is because the lower banner is going to impact how scoring comes out at the end of the game, which I'll go over in a minute. So that is the senator card, and the last card is the tribune. So I'm not sure that I mentioned, as you're playing these cards, they go down face up in front of you and they stay there until you play this card. When you play this card, you get coins equal to the number of cards you're picking up minus 3. And you also have the option to build another colonist for 1 tool and 1 food. And you can choose whether you want it to be a person who are only allowed to travel on land, or a boat, which is only allowed to travel on the blue spaces. So that's pretty much all the options you have at the beginning of the game. There are some that'll come out here, like these green bannered ones, which will allow you to produce goods in a specific type of city all over the map. There are some that will make it easier for you to collect people from this row. There's Mercators that give you more than 3 coins just for playing them. But basically, they're all going to be some variation of what's in the starting hand. So with that, let me move on and explain how scoring works so that you might have an idea of why you want to do things in this game. Before I move on to explaining scoring, I wanted to just quickly explain how the game ends. So there's 2 endgame conditions. Either once the stack of cards runs out and all of the cards have been taken from this row, the person who takes the last one will get the endgame card, or the first player to use all of their house tokens will also signal the end game and get that 7-point card. So scoring is explained on the back of your player card, and it goes through all of the types of banners that are shown on the various cards. So I believe you have one of each of those, except maybe the green banner in your starting hand. So what each of those does, the first one is Vesta. Vesta will get you 1 point per 10 coins that you have at the end of the game. You won't see any of those in the additional cards that are coming out. It's kind of just like your coins aren't worthless at the end of the game sort of mechanism. You only have one of them in your hand, so your coins are going to be minimally useful at the end of the game. The next type is Jupiter, which is the blue cards. And those are going to give you points for every non-brick city that you have built in. So if you have 4 of these Jupiter cards and you've built in 8 non-brick cities, then you'll get 8 times 4 points, that's 32. So you would then move your scored marker up to the 32. And then the next scoring opportunity is Saturn, which are the yellow banners. These are going to score you points based on the number of areas that you've built in. So if you've built in all 12 of the areas, you will get 12 times the number of yellow banners that you've collected. So let's say you've collected 4. 4 times 12 is 48. So at that point, you would move your marker 48 points, so that would bring you up to 80. Next is Mercury. I'm not very good at these foreign languages, so I think it's Mercury, but forgive me if I'm getting that wrong. Anyway, that is going to produce points based on the number of types of cities that you've built in. So there's brick, food, tools, wine, and cloth. If you've built in each type of city, the brown cards are going to produce you 2 points each. So let's say that you've collected 5 of these and you've built in all of the types of cities. That's going to get you 10 points. Next is Mars. Mars is going to get you 2 points per colonist that you've placed on the map. So at this point, the game would not be over. But you would get 2 points per colonist, so that would be 2 times 3 is 6. And then the final scoring opportunity is Minerva, which is going to be these green cards, which are based on a specific type of city. So for this one example, the Smith gets you 3 points per tool city that you've built in. So let's say that you have 3 tool cities and you get 3 points each, so that's 9 points. So you would again move 9 points. And that is how the scoring works. The player who ended the game will get an additional 7 points. And that's it. Whoever is the farthest along the scoring track at that point wins the game. Alright, so that's Concordia. If you couldn't tell as I was explaining, this is a game that I play a lot and I really enjoy. It was nominated for a Kennerspiel, so that's a pretty good indication that it's a good game. I don't think I need to add on to that too much, but I think that this game gets kind of a bad rap, maybe partially because of the cover. I'm not generally impressed with Rio Grande's covers, but the gameplay on this one is really good. And it's a Euro game. You feel that a lot as you're playing it. It's collect resources and use them to build things. But for me, that's a lot of fun, and the playing of the cards in order to do that, I think makes this unique in a way that a lot of other Euro games don't necessarily have. So I enjoy playing this one a lot, and I think that although the art isn't necessarily the best, that the game is unique in a way that I don't think I have anything else in my collection that's quite like this. So I suggest you give this one a look if you haven't already. And if you have, please let me know your thoughts on Concordia. You can reach out to us at any of our social media accounts at D6Pack Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or D6PackPodcast at gmail.com. And with that, I look forward to hearing from you guys, and keep listening to our audio podcast, which is released bi-weekly on the second Thursday and last Thursday of every month. Thanks for watching. Bye.